Hey guys, and welcome to this week's episode of the Top Producing Zone podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Michael Jin.
And I'm Shane Carvalho.
So this week we have a real estate investor, former broker owner, mega team leader, icon agent, co-founder of Paragon Asset Management Group, Bryan Knisley, with us today. And it's safe to say, just based on that, Bryan, you've kind of done so many things and accomplished so many things in the world of real estate. So we're super thrilled to have you with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it. And that sounds so much better than it really is, but I appreciate that introduction.
No, it's awesome. And so let's start here. Like, how did you get into real estate, Bryan? What drew you in?
I think without going back and boring everybody to tears, like the very start of it, I grew up in Michigan and always wanted out of Michigan. And I figured a way to get to the West Coast. I'm a West Coast kind of guy stuck in the Midwest. And, everything that I did tried to get me out of there. And then it ended up, really kind of picking a point on the map and saying, let's just hit Vegas. And so we got to Vegas and got established, went into the casino industry for about 8 years when I got here in my early 20s. And then realized that, real estate was always a kind of an interest and a passion of mine. And I got into real estate back in 1999, 2000, right around that time. And quickly realized that in the investing side of real estate was where my passion was. And that's kind of how everything started from there.
I mean, as far as picking spots on a map, you can't go wrong with Vegas.
Yeah, it was weird too, because it was like, where do you want to go? So it was a buddy of mine from my childhood, buddy, and we were like, let's just get out of here before we get stuck. Like, where do you want to go? And we just kind of threw him. Neither one of us had ever been here before. And then he left me here 6 months later by myself. So I literally built from the ground up by myself as a young kid.
Wait, he's not the one that started the investment thing with you?
No, he's not.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So my first Christmas in Vegas, I spent by myself at a video poker machine at a bar, saying, just kind of looking at my life choices, going, what have I done?
There's worse places to end up in.
Yeah. Oh, now looking back, I'm like, this was the place for me, and, I don't know, 30 some years later, here I am.
Wait, it's been that long?
Yeah. I moved here in, what was it? 93.
Wow.
Holy
yeah.
moly.
Yeah.
I had to think about that. I had to go back. Yeah, I think it's been 93. So it's been over 30 years.
I've heard some of your story. I didn't realize that. I guess I didn't remember you having come back that far back. Wow.
Oh, and I got some Vegas stories for you too. We'll have to save that for another episode.
I mean, you still had the steak and lobster for under $20. That's awesome, man.
Yeah. Back then it was $777. Now it's 500.
Wow.
So you found tremendous success, like you said, building your business on investors, and you said you quickly realized investing and investors were kind of the way that you wanted to go. What is it about that really drew you to it?
Yeah, and I think this is something that agents really need to figure out too. Is like who they are in the real estate space. And that's definitely something that I would recommend, especially any newer agents, that like pick your lane, find out where it's at. Like, what do you want to do? Because if you're in this for the long haul, like you want to find stuff that you're passionate about. Don't just try to be everything to everyone and try to get business. So for me, it was like, okay, how do I learn the investing space now? I didn't know anything about it. I had never been a real estate investor. I was a young kid. And so I said, how do I learn the space? And, this was back, we went through the 06 boom where we were just selling, writing contracts every single day, and it was easy. And then all of a sudden 07, 08 hit, and the bottom fell out. And that was really when I had to kind of reinvent myself. And I looked around and I said, okay, where's the opportunity? So, and that's another thing too, is I want to encourage everybody to always look at what's coming down the pipeline. Like, study your market, find out what the numbers are saying. Where's the inventory going? Is it up or down? Is the median price going up or down? Is it going into a buyer's market or a seller's market? And then figure out how to get in front of that. How do I provide solutions and value to the people that we're going to be serving in the future and not today? And then you can get ahead of that curve because every other agent's just trying to write contracts and do what they're supposed to be doing today and not thinking about the future. And that's what I did. And at that point, the market really took a downturn. So I said, I want to learn every aspect of this business. And I got into the mortgage side of the business and got my mortgage license so I could learn the finance side of this business. Did that for a couple of years. And then after that, I looked, okay, how do I learn the investing side of this business? And through my contacts and relationships that I built, I've always built my business on relationships and building bridges everywhere I go. I think it's really, really important, from the title company reps to the lenders to everybody that you come in contact with. For me, I work for them. They don't work for me. And so I'm always trying to figure out ways of providing value so that they want to work with me and want to bring me business and want to bring me other people and put opportunities in front of me. So I was able to get into an interview with a private capital group back at that point, and I got the job as an asset manager for a private capital group. We started building non-performing note pools, REOs. Back in the days of those big REO pools were going around, and you had all these NCNDs floating around, and it's just a crazy time. But I was using other people's money at that time to learn the business. Like, these guys have tons of money, and now I can hone my craft here and learn and make, not that I'm making mistakes, but make the mistakes that I need to make in order to learn the side of the business. And that's when we stumbled upon the trustee sale auction. And we built out the platform for them to buy properties at the auction and renovate them and turn them and flip them. And so that's really where my flipping career started, was there. And that's where I met my now partner, where we created Paragon Asset Management Group together. And we've been flipping properties ever since, doing 200 plus properties. And the reason that I talk about building relationships is that when the market completely bottomed out in 2012, as you guys know, the hedge funds came into town and institutional investors came into town. And before this time, they had never invested in the real estate space before. It was all, in the single family space, I should say, right? It was always multifamily, hundreds of doors at a time, because they could manage those. Well, they saw the writing on the wall, and they saw, hey, we've got an opportunity here to buy up as many properties as we can at the absolute bottom of the market, get cash flow, hit our yields, and be able to just ride this out for the long haul. So a couple of hedge funds came into town at that time. I was able to interview with two different hedge funds, number one and number two hedge fund in the country at that time, because of the relationships that we built. And because of the reputation that I had in the industry, as well as my partner, of doing a good job as an operator down at the auction and buying properties and working with investor funds. And so we were recommended to these hedge funds. And long story short, is we ended up going to work for Colony American Homes and built a portfolio of close to 1,000 homes in 2 years. And so at that time, I was a single agent licensed, and I closed 587 deals in 2013 under my license. And so when I say find your lane and find your niche, that would never be possible had I not been able to set all that up. And, that's kind of the journey that led me into the investing space.
I mean, that's pretty incredible. And when you start sharing your story about, looking ahead and trying to figure out like what's coming up, my head for some reason always goes back to, like the Blockbuster example. Right. That reference is just to show I'm not as young as I look either. But, like the case studies, I remember reading about Blockbuster, right? They never felt like, new entrants, Netflix coming in, or any of these other guys were going to be a major competitor or a major hindrance to them. And so what do? They just stopped trying to evolve. But what happens with like a company like Netflix started off like, I remember like, they would send you DVDs and you watch them at home and then you send them back to them. And all of a sudden they became like this major streaming platform, and Blockbuster was like, well, I mean, now Blockbuster's dead. So we know how all that ended up. But I think this theme.
By the way, I miss Blockbuster. I miss that experience of walking in and picking your videos and then going home and having to rewind them before you take them back to the store.
That was my experience. Yeah.
Hey, how about the big, what was it called? The big discs?
Oh, yeah. The Blu-ray players, isn't that what it was?
No, the big white, they're white, different colors, but they're like a big record that were in the sleeve. What was that?
I don't remember what those were called, but that was a very small blip in the market at that time.
Now I'm super dating myself, but that was
I was going to say that one went over my head.
But But well, it's interesting because when you got in the investment space and kind of writing that out, it's interesting because you landed in a market where there's a lot of volume and a lot of opportunity.
Yeah.
And that was a plus that you've been taking advantage of that. It's a lot harder to do that in my market. I just picked up the first good deal in like 2 years, and you guys are doing like 100, 200 a year in your market. That's insane.
Yeah, I'm not doing that type of volume now just because there's the margins are much thinner and the market has changed. And so we've moved into the luxury space now. So now we're doing like quality over quantity. And we've just become the top provider of luxury renovated homes in Las Vegas. And so again, it's like, look at where the opportunity is. If there's no more opportunity to buy median priced houses at a margin that we can just do, quick paint and carpet and make them, do a flip and make our margins, and great, we'll continue to do that at volume. But when we can no longer do that, you have to look at, what's the opportunity moving forward. And for us, that was the luxury space. And so we've been in the luxury space now for the last several years. And thank God the luxury market kind of took off. And now it allows us to buy some old outdated properties, throw $500,000 into a property and completely dial it in. And then it comes back to the quality now too. We have to make sure that quality is there, because that's a whole different buyer. You've got a very savvy, buyer that's looking for a product that they don't, because we over renovate. There's no comps for our properties when we do these, luxury flips. That's where we create the value. Is we want that cash buyer from California or somebody that's just looking for a property that they absolutely love. And they know that they're probably maybe overpaying a little bit, but they're overpaying for the quality and the type of property and the style of property that we built. And we built a big following of people. And so we've got pocket areas around town where we specialize in, the Sun City Summerlin's, the 55 plus communities where properties were built in the 80s, and then we could bring it up to modern times. We've got the Arts District, which is near downtown, and just a few pocket areas where we really understand those markets. And anytime something pops up on it.
Well, and Bryan, you mentioned kind of relationships or kind of building and establishing those relationships were kind of key for you, and kind of expanding and growing your business. From your perspective, how were you so successful in building, maintaining, and also growing those relationships? What worked for you?
Yeah, I think that goes back to just, how do we provide value? I was like, I didn't know how to get into the investing space. So I looked for the people that were already in that space. And then how do I provide value to you so that I can learn from you? So anytime that, I'm looking to pivot or do something in a new space, then I always look for, who is doing it at a high level and how can I provide value to them and get in their space, even if it's working for free for a little while. A lot of times you can do internships or provide a service to somebody that's, might save them a little bit of time or bring value to their business. And now you're taking that information and you'll be able to apply it to your business. So it's really just about, really just being a decent human being and treating people well. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think I think we can all agree there's a lack of that sometimes in this industry. And it doesn't have to be that way, because I know, listing agents that were, top listing agents in the short sale days where they were just king of the hill, and, REO, listing agents. And when they didn't want to pick up their phone and talk to agents, all of a sudden when their business went away, now all of a sudden they're on the other side of the coin. And it's like, we remember that. I remember when you were on the top of the hill and didn't take my phone call. You know what I mean? So don't ever think that, that you're never going to be taken off the top of the heap. And that's just not the way I operate anyway. So
go ahead, Bryan.
I was going to say too, I think it's really important in this market, especially. There's lots of changes going on right now. And we talked about kind of looking for what the new opportunity is. There's a lot of agents that are sitting on the sidelines and not knowing what to do. Yep. Look for the opportunity. Where's the opportunity right now? Well, with the opportunity with buyers, what I'm doing with my team and my agents is the affordability is out the window. I mean, I know, Shane, you're in California and, your affordability is crazy, but in Vegas too, it's like we're starting to crest our peak value in Vegas here. And going back to those values, and you look at interest rates you got a $3,500 mortgage payment for a median priced house. Like, that's insane. So how do we create more affordability there? Well, I started partnering with some of my lending partners and said, hey guys, let's get together, figure out how we can capitalize on these government grants and these, forgivable grants and repayable grants and, silent seconds and, 100% financing or conventional financing with 3% down, and just have an entire library of programs that can now we can bring to the masses and say, hey, you may qualify for these programs and you might not even know it. Our main purpose right now is to get you into home ownership with as little money out of pocket as possible. So if you're getting into a rental property, you've got first month's, last month's security deposit, application fees, we can get you into a property for less than what you would get into a rental property for. Why would you not rent? And our credit score started at 580. Like if you don't have a 580, then we got some other issues to deal with, right? So let's help you with that. But, so that's a very compelling message to put out in the marketplace. So now we're putting that out on Facebook and Instagram and social media, and we're getting hundreds of leads a month. And again, it's a volume game. You're going to talk to a lot of people that don't qualify, but everybody that we talk to wants our help. So I'm always looking at pipeline business too. I need business today, but I also need business 6 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now. So all these people go into your pipeline, you help them, again, provide a service and a value, and they will come back to you when they're ready. Right.
Yeah. The whole credit repair journey, because I started in lending like you, I went into lending as well. I got really good at helping people with their credit and stuff. And, a lot of people don't understand how credit works or don't understand the value or don't even know what's going on. And that's a really good way to bring value to a client and then have them as part of your pipeline to eventually have as a client. It's interesting you were touching on like the grants and the different things. I mean, in my market, we have some like Measure J, Measure O, like these different measures that have reduced price properties, but the income parameters are so tight. It's like trying to fit like a square peg in a round hole. It's very hard to get people qualified, and they're way below market. Like our below market homes are like 500,000-600,000.
Yeah. It's almost impossible in your market.
You're laughing, but there is some closing cost programs. There's still some limited like silent seconds and stuff. But then, like the average price in my market is like 2.2 million. And
that's
so
nuts.
most of like in the last 6 weeks, I've sold about 15 million, and 2 million of it was financing. 13 million was cash. So
how many houses I'd have to sell for 15 million?
I'm good at math. We can try. But
like 30.
What's interesting though is that you brought up a good point, which we haven't even talked about, but obviously it's something you're aware of. It's you earlier in the podcast you're talking about like knowing the stats, knowing what the market's doing, and everything else. You're clearly really good at analyzing your market and where the movement is and where the needs are, and meeting that. Just like in my market. I've obviously been doing the same thing. This is my 25th year in the business. I mean, I've been in business for a long time too. And one thing I wanted to throw in there, not to go way in left field. Michael knows I usually take these things on tangents, but I was at the EXP build on Thursday, and our new CEO, Leo Pareja, was talking, right? And it was interesting because he's all Mr. Stats, always watching everything. I didn't even know that this is going to be the first year in 30 years with the lowest sales, like number of transactions, lowest sales volume, number of transactions in real estate in 30 years. That's insane. So it's like knowing stats like that and kind of monitoring where rates are and everything else. I mean, agents should be monitoring that stuff so they can kind of approach their business, the right way. But anyway.
Yeah. I knew that because I see agents around me dropping like flies. Right. Like the ones that are not committed to their business, are not consistent on a daily basis. The secret to this whole business is consistency over time.
Right.
That's it. Like find your lane, find your niche, whatever you call it, and be consistent over time. Yeah, you've got to make adjustments along the way, but as you do something long enough, you're going to figure out how to be good at it. And you're going to stop sucking, and then you're going to master it, and then you can start moving on to doing other things. But there's so many shiny pennies in this industry, and so many people saying, "Hey, don't do this. Come over here and check this out." They're all selling programs or whatever they're doing.
Right.
You know what I mean? Just find something and master it. And then you'll create more efficiencies and more time and more leverage where now you can bring in some other things to do. And this is what I always teach my agents. I had an agent come to me. I just had him on my podcast the other day. Michael, he came to me from corporate, and his job was cut and he needed a start. He wanted to jump in full time. I said, focus on one thing, dude. And that's exactly what he did. He closed 14 deals his first year. He became rookie of the year. And, there were some ups and downs after that. But the point of the story was just focus on one thing and don't let anybody knock you off of that. Yeah. Like make the adjustments that you need to make, but become very effective and efficient. So really quickly, sorry, I'm going off on a tangent, but the
don't be sorry.
The listing,
no, it's all good.
the listing side. So now we talked about the buyer side, but where's the opportunity on the listing side now? Like everybody wants listings right now because we know this is like the wild, wild west with all these NAR changes and what's going on. Our unrepresented buyers are going to now just start going to listing agents. Maybe, maybe not. Who knows? But I don't think much is going to change in the industry for those of us to understand how to operate in these new, constraints. But the listing side is there's a lot of people that are locked up with equity in houses that can't get out. And so now how do we look at that and how do we provide value to sellers? Well, number one, through our, proprietary express offers platform, we can provide cash offers to sellers, which, less than 1% of your sellers are going to take advantage of that. So how do I use that as a tool to now get other opportunities in front of those sellers? Because everybody wants cash offers. So I market the cash offers, but I also come back it up with, hey, I wouldn't suggest that you take a discounted cash offer and sell it to an investor. Why don't you become the investor? We have a program that we call Flip Your Own House. Let me come in, do the renovations on your property, get it up to speed. If you've got some deferred maintenance or if you've got an outdated property, I will come in, I'll do the renovations, and I will create more value in that property. And now you and I are partners, and we will split the gain on that property at the sale of the property. So no money comes out of your pocket. You get to see the end result of what the renovations are, and you get to have some pride in the sale of this property, and you get to make more money. So find solutions to have sellers get more money in their pocket. Because if they got to move out of that property to go buy another one and take a 4% interest rate to go to a 7% interest rate, you got to figure out a way to soften that blow, right?
Right.
If I can I walked into one of my sellers the other day and I said, how long would it take you to save 50 grand? Like I got this movie money that I pulled out and I wanted it to be real for them. I'm like, this is real. Like, how long would it take you to save this amount of money? And I plopped it on the table. And it's just, I could saw their faces light up. I'm potentially, we're not done with renovations yet, but this seller had to sell cash to somebody because they started renovations during COVID and couldn't finish and didn't have the money to finish. We came in, now we're doing the renovations, and I'm potentially going to make them another $50,000 to $70,000 on this property by partnering with them. So find stuff like that. There's Curbio, there's programs like that. If you don't have the means to do it yourself, find an investor that will and partner with them.
Yeah, well, I'm very familiar with that because I do the same thing. The only thing I don't do is I don't share the equity. But I actually, reactivated my contractor's license a couple of years ago, and I grew my crew. I have 8 guys. And so, like, this listing I just put on the market last night, I had 7 guys there for a week and a half just grinding to get that place done. It's like flip this house like on fast forward.
Yeah.
And, I'm a big fan of that.
How grateful are the sellers? How grateful are the sellers that you came in and helped them?
Oh, 95% of the time they're extremely grateful. 5% of the time they're like, we wanted to sell it as is and we don't want to spend money. So it's like, it just, there's always going to be.
I got a cash offer for you.
You can always get the grumbles, but no, overall, this has been one of our secrets to success, at least in my business.
Right.
And that's definitely a way to serve the sellers. And going into these changing markets, not a lot's going to change, honestly. Some paperwork and some methods, but at the end of the day, it's still the same game,
I agree 100%. We've had a lot of conversations with my team and other agents on this lately. And I'm like, guys, don't overthink this. Don't overthink this. Create your value proposition on the buy side. Create that, the rapport with the buyers, and then let them know exactly why you get paid what you get paid, and that you're going to go after. You're a top negotiator that's going to go after the money from the seller. And if should that not happen, then we can renegotiate at that time. You're never going to get slapped with a bill at the end that you didn't know about. Like, you have to sign on the dotted line before that happens. So we'll cross that bridge when we get there, right? But
Bryan, you talked about kind of just leading with value and giving solutions. And I think one thing I want to explicitly call out, which I find really fascinating, is how do you get to that solution? How do you get to that value prop? It sounds like whether you're thinking about the buyer, you're thinking about the seller, like you're putting yourselves into their shoes. trying to understand kind of what their pain points are. What is it that they deal with on an everyday basis that you can then go and figure out what the problem is so you can help them find the right solutions. Because a lot of times, like if I think about a buyer or seller, like families, people that are living their lives, going to work their jobs, they're probably too busy to think about some of these things. But if you're thinking about it for them, you're putting a solution in front of them that may resonate whether they had the time to think about it or not.
Yeah, 100%. And that's our job.
Yep.
We're solutions providers. Like how do we help you manage this real estate process? Like our job is to facilitate a real estate experience so that you can realize your real estate goals. That's it. Like, and so how do we do that? Okay, well, just figure it out. I mean, I've given several examples right there of just how you work with some buyers right now in this market, how you work with sellers in this market, what solutions you can help provide. Somebody I heard them say this the other day. I think it was at our regional rally. She said, just find how to take the pebble out of their shoe. Mm-hmm. It's like if they get you're walking around with a pebble in your shoe, it's annoying as hell. Like figure out ways to remove that pebble from people's shoes. So it's just providing solutions and figuring that out. And that goes back to, knowing your market. Yep. Where's the inventory going? Where's the prices going? What's the interest rates? All that good stuff. How do I provide solutions?
Well, did your rally focus on mindset? Because like the event that I went to, in LA, that was big mindset, which I've been preaching. And I think that's a big part of it. And the other thing too, I was going to say was that what you're saying earlier about consistency and putting in the work is, and I've said this a lot recently is, keep doing the work even when you don't see the results. Just keep doing the work, stay consistent, because even 25 years in, things still come in bunches, like last month I closed over $10 million in sales. I mean, it's not every month. I mean, sometimes things just line up that way, right? Other months you sell $1 million, right? It's like, it basically, you just got to keep putting in the work. And I guarantee, I always tell them, you're going to get a lot more results if you do this versus if you don't do anything. Like, I guarantee that. So,
when you have some agents that'll hear those numbers that you're throwing out right now, Shane. They're like, I can't even imagine that. Like you for you being in the business as long as you have, as successful as you are, it's like those are just numbers that you throw around. But some agents that I work with that are newer in the business, they would kill to do 10 million in their career. Like you're talking about a year.
I guess it's relative. I guess it's relative to the market, right?
And like I said, you'd have to sell 30 homes here in order to do 10 million at median price.
But the other thing that's important too is that, and this is why like in our groups and stuff, you've seen a lot of newer agents being used as examples for newer agents, so they feel like they could relate. Like it needs to be relatable, right? Like I might not sound super relatable, so that's obviously something as well. But
it's inspiring though. It really is. It's inspiring, and everybody wants to get to that level. Like that's where everybody wants to be.
But here's what I was going to say to that though is that like and this is part of the mindset thing. Like in fact, last week I was with an agent telling her like, hey, you got to be in the life of this where you want to do the business. You want to be a luxury agent. You got to get familiar with these kinds of restaurants or this food or this or that. The thing is, even for these new agents, even if your market only has a certain sector that's super luxury or whatever, it's like there's got to be a belief system there, right? Like and it's hard to believe if you've never been there, but you have to get yourself there, especially now. I mean, that's my opinion. I mean, like, look, for me, I think that especially when I was a new agent, like back then because 25 years ago, when I crossed over into sales was back in 2008. So about 16 years ago is when I crossed over from lending to sales. But I was going to say, like, for me, like luxury was $1 million plus at that time. And I wanted to sell $1 million homes. And as a new agent, I was really excited about that, but I didn't know how to get there. And I felt like, oh my gosh, it's so intimidating. But I found my way through doing open houses, letting agents do their open houses. That's how I broke in. And then once you do one, you find out how easy it is. And now you have one under your belt for proof to go get more. But it took a belief to get there. It's kind of like, I don't really like roller coasters, but like if you go on a scary roller coaster that you're afraid of, but then you go on it, you're like, oh shit, that was fun. I wish I did it sooner. I want to do it
Let's
again.
Get back in line again.
Well, that's what I feel. That's what I feel like it's like when you go from regular sales to like luxury or higher price points. You have to become a believer to ever get to that point.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up too, because as a former broker owner and now a team leader, I find myself as one of my hats that I wear as a therapist. because they're, dealing with a lot of emotions. And I take that stuff very seriously. I mean, I work very closely with my agents in working with their mindset and their daily habits. Like I just got turned on to this book, which, by the way, I recommend for everybody. Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker. Changed the way that I think and the way that I speak to myself on a daily basis, and changes your financial blueprint. Like, you have financial blueprints set in your body that is like, maybe set from childhood, the way you were raised, the way people talk to you, whatever your self-belief. You can change that. And if you don't change it, you're always going to be stuck where you are. So you have to work on your mindset. You have to work on your daily disciplines and retraining your mind. Like, if you're the type of person that's always thinking about, oh, the market's in the dumps, I can't get any offers, that's what you're going to attract in your life. I mean, I truly believe that stuff. And it's not that simple, but on the surface level, that's exactly what that kind of stuff is. And so you work on that on a daily basis. And so with my agents, there is no work-life separation in real estate. You guys agree with that? Like, real estate is your life. So why do we treat everything separate? Like this, we call these deposits. Like, your bank account, you can't continue to make withdrawals on your bank account and expect to get wealthy. Like, pretty soon you're going to be broke and you're going to figure out, what the hell's going on. So we have to put daily deposits into each area of our life. So our power deposits would be our health and fitness. Are you doing something every day to make sure that you're getting your body moving and putting yourself in the right, not only the right, I know when I'm working out, I'm way more confident and I show up bigger. And when I'm not, I'm a little more reclusive and I'm a little bit more ashamed of, who I am in my body. So work on your health and fitness. So we talk about that on a daily basis. And then, and your purpose deposits, that's where the mindset stuff comes in, Shane. And that's where the relationship side of your business comes in. We've got to work on that stuff, because if you're not, gelling with your spouse when you come home from the office after 12 hours worth of work and she's not 100% behind you, or he, then you're going to have a much harder time, getting through the tough times of business. And so work on your purpose deposits and putting deposits in every single day. And I do it, where time management's, tough for everybody these days because we only have so much time. But I listen to my podcast while I'm working out, walk my dogs for 2 miles at night. I've listened to my podcast. I listen to my, my audiobooks and things like that. So put those two things together, and then your profits deposits are your business, marketing, sales, systems, leadership. You have to learn something new about that every single day. Yeah. And so I have this 90-day workbook, because 90 days it creates a habit. So we focus on those things every single day. And what's the number one thing that we need to accomplish this week? And you work on those things, and no matter what happens, that thing has to be accomplished. And now after 52 weeks, you've got 52 things accomplished that you may have had on your to-do list for a very long time. So yes, mindset, daily habits and rituals, and the way that you speak to yourself on a daily basis, retrain all that stuff. And I'll tell you what, it makes an absolutely huge difference in your business and in your personal life.
Well, I think the purpose piece here is truly the really important part, right? You have to understand and know what it is you're truly wanting and working after and going after. And sometimes, like, if we're not clear on purpose, then it naturally has an impact on your actions and how you respond to failure and things that don't go your way the first time around. And I think a lot of times, like, maybe we don't go deep enough with trying to understand what our purpose is, because a lot of people will feel like, well, what do you want to accomplish? Well, I just want to be rich and make a lot of money. Well, okay. But then ask yourself that next question of, like, what does that actually mean for you? And what does it look like for you? There has to be more to that, to your purpose, than just making a shit ton of money.
Yeah, 100%, Michael. That's like jumping into an airplane and saying, take me to the West Coast.
Yeah.
Where do we land?
Sometimes people think that's just their goal, right? Their goal is just, I want to make a lot of money, but they don't really go deeper.
Don't we all?
Yeah.
How do you get there?
How do you get there? Yeah. So there's one other aspect I want to hit on, and we probably kind of touched on this a little bit already, Bryan. You've obviously built up and run a successful team. You've talked about you kind of play therapist to your team members. What are other things that you've done that have helped you to kind of, build out and maintain a successful team?
Wow, that's a great question. I will tell you that anybody out there that's ever run a brokerage or built a team, that it's probably the hardest business venture that I have tried to take on in my entire career. Like working with hedge funds and portfolios, and it is an absolute full-time commitment. And so I'm sorry, what was the initial question again?
How have you gone about like building a successful team? What are things that you've learned? And you've shared some things already,
Yeah.
You play therapist, right? But there's also like training and mindset that you do with them. But what are some other things that you found successful in maintaining and building a team?
It's just that consistency piece, like keeping people on track and having them realize that, what they say and what they do sometimes are two different things, and they may not know that. Mm-hmm. So focusing on your daily goals and your daily affirmations and keeping your mindset right, because as you guys know, this is not an instant gratification business. Yep. So you have to do things for extended period of time without seeing any results. But you have to know that you focus on the activity and not the result, and the result eventually comes. As long as you've got the right guidance and the right systems and the right mentorship and the things in place, which is what I absolutely love about our group, is that, we have all of that and then some. The value stack with our group is unbelievable. But it's just being around, the people that you surround yourself with is probably more important than the daily activities that you do. Mm-hmm. Because you could be doing daily activities and work. I know a lot of agents that work really hard that are broke. So, who you follow and who you hang out with is a game changer, like absolute game changer. So make sure the people that you're following are actually doing in today's market what you want to do. If they're not, go find somebody that is. Because there's a lot of people out there that claim to be mentors and trainers, and I'm not disrespecting anybody. I'm just saying, be careful who you're following and make sure they're doing something in what you want to be doing in today's market, because today's market is very, very different than it was 5 years ago or 10 years. You guys agree with that?
Oh, shoot, for sure. In so many ways.
Yeah. So it's really finding your tribe, I guess. I don't know if that's cool to say anymore. I don't know, but finding your tribe is really just,
it's cool here, man.
Okay, good. Yeah. Find your people. Like, who do you like to hang out with, and who's creating success? I mean, that's how I found, Mike from the Wolfpack. Mike Sherrard is like, when I was a broker owner, I was like, I need to teach my agents social media. Who is crushing it at the highest level in social media? And so I found Mike, and I bought his Social Agent Academy so that I could learn it and teach to my agents. Because as a small broker owner, they only know what you know. So I had to go out and hire the best trainers and mentors and everybody that's crushing it in the space. And then when I got, more and more around him and Connor and everybody else in the Wolfpack, I'm like, oh, these are my people. This is who I need to run with. And so, we made that transition, and everybody's much better off from it. But it's about the people you surround yourself with, and the training and the mentorship and the systems and processes and everything that you're doing on a daily basis. It's not that difficult. Real estate is not that difficult. It's really hard, but it's not that difficult, if that makes any sense. Like, if you break it down into its simplest form, like, stop all the nonsense and the noise and just get consistent with that one thing, and you'll figure it out.
Yeah, it's true. And the thing too, what you're saying about joining these guys and joining the group and everything too, it's like elevating your circle too, especially at a time like this, because there's a lot of negativity out there, and I've never seen so much of it. So it's like, it's been kind of a lonely time for me in my business, because there's obviously a few of you guys that are in my circle, but I mean, my circle's got smaller than ever the last 6 months.
I got to come out and spend some time with you, buddy.
What's that?
I got to come out and spend some time with you. You're you're
always welcome. Yeah. But I'm just saying, the circle's gotten so small. Like, it's definitely quality over quantity, and you can't expose yourself to that negativity.
I'm so glad you brought that up too, Shane, because as a broker owner of a small independent brokerage, I never felt more lonely. Like, I was the guy. Like, I had to be everything to everyone. And I never felt more lonely. And I could not imagine being in that position right now with all the changes that are going on. Because all the changes that are going on, you know how many questions I get from my team right now? And guess what I did the other day? I said, okay, we're having a team meeting. I got our managing broker on our team meeting, and I had him go over all the documents, all the changes and everything with our team. And boom, Call was done, recorded, putting it into our workplace. And now I have a recording of all of that for my agents to go watch. All of those duties that I normally had to do myself as a broker owner are now leveraged out to the 2,000 employees that we have backing us in our company. It's incredible. I couldn't imagine having to go through what we're going through right now as an independent broker owner out there, lonely island by myself. Those were lonely days, man.
Yeah, well, they always say it's lonely at the top or it's lonely on your success journey, but I think that it's better lonely than in bad company. And it's something I've heard for years, and I value it now more than ever. And,
yeah, I would agree with that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know, well, Michael, obviously him and I are good friends, and I've shared a lot with him over the last few months. But it's interesting because the other thing too is that, you get too comfortable with people in your circle. Like some people, whether it's someone that's just like a really good friend, maybe a coworker that's been with you for 10 plus years, like you never call that into question because it's so the norm. For the first time in my life, I called all that into question. And it's interesting because if I look at the last 6 months of my life and what I've accomplished during what are supposed to be tough times, it's incredible how well I've done in the last 6 months since I've done that cleaning. And I don't think I gave that enough credit. Like who you surround yourself to, what you're exposing yourself to, protecting your energy. Like I always thought that I feel like I was always, I don't know, it's like you almost think that you're invincible, right? Like broker owner, leader, successful, but like, oh yeah, whatever, bad energy, whatever, like I'm above that. You know what? Even if you in your mental state feel like, oh yeah, it's still affecting you. Like even if you're not trying to put attention, it still affects you. And yeah, it's been a game changer. And I know we keep circling back to this, but anyone who wants to be successful now, and I know you've heard me like going off right now at leaders meeting. I don't know what's wrong with me. I've been a little crazy in there, but it's such a thing right now, and it's the difference between being successful or not this year and the next couple years, because there's going to be a lot of people that are not going to be happy. There's going to be a lot of negativity, and if you can't start holding that line now, then it's going to keep you from getting to the next level.
Well, I think there's a part of this. I think there's a part of this where it's like nothing's ever going to remain static, right? Whether you're talking about your business, what market you're in today, but what we talked about at the beginning of the podcast, always trying to find what's next and pivoting to the right thing the way as the market adapts. It's the same thing with like our circles. Like just because I'm vibing and I'm connecting with somebody today and I'm choosing to surround myself with them today doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the same benefit. It's going to be the same experience like half a year from now or a year from now. And so we talk about finding your tribe, but I think it's also not just finding your tribe, but always reevaluating, is this the right tribe for me going forward?
Yeah, 100%. I'm glad you brought that up too, because, everything's shifting and pivoting all the time. Like, so you have to pay attention, like whether it's your real estate business, whether it's the people you surround yourself with, like, don't just get comfortable. Comfortable is dangerous. Like I'm trying to always put myself into uncomfortable situations every day. And as a team leader, that's pretty easy to do. But
isn't that the truth?
But it's like, hey, as soon as I start feeling comfortable, I'm like, I'm not growing.
Yeah.
Complacency. I was going to say complacency along those lines as well. Complacency, because that can happen, especially with less experienced agents that have a little bit of success. So not only do you got to stay uncomfortable and grow, but complacency is very dangerous now more than ever.
Well, so here's a quick story. I told you guys that I interviewed Michael on my podcast, and that his first year was 14 deals and he was rookie of the year. His second year, he didn't close a single deal. So that's this was the moral of that. The story that he needed to learn, or the lesson that he needed to learn, was you can never take your foot off the gas. And the most important time to get on the gas is when you're on top of the heap.
Yeah, the momentum. I was telling my assistant that today. Ride that momentum.
Yes.
Ride that wave.
Because nothing lasts forever.
No.
Yeah.
No, that's when he's pedal to the metal at that point.
Yeah.
I firmly.
So again, consistency over time. It's pretty simple. Consistency over time creates success. That's the absolute key to real estate.
You got to pay your dues every day. It doesn't matter if it's been 2 years or 5 years or 20 years. You got to pay your dues every day.
Yep.
All right. Well, I mean, we're going to finish with the question that we ask all our guests. Given just the amazing just experiences and knowledge you've shared, this could just be a summary and a synthesis of everything that you've already talked about. But given all that and all that you've learned in your career so far, if you were starting a real estate production business today, how would you go about doing it?
I think about this question all the time because it gets asked all the time. And it's so hard to think back of 20 plus years ago of me jumping into this business because wow, what a different market it is these days.
No social media. Contracts, carbon copy, fax machines.
Right. We didn't even have the MLS back then. It was
no
print
phone apps. No phone apps.
You had to find listings. And so very, very different. And I think that younger people definitely resonate more with the social aspect of building a business these days because it's all about relationships. So I just joined my local provisors here in Las Vegas. And so for me, it's about and you're right, I am kind of reiterating what we've already talked about, but find how you can provide as much value to as many people as you possibly can. Right. So by joining my local provisors group, I now have an absolute massive network of trusted advisors that have been vetted that have at least 10 years in their field of business that now I can refer out business to. So I have this entire book of business, and this is just one aspect of it, but I'm just giving examples. Yep. Because how many times do we see a client where, they have maybe they bought a property for $2 million 7 years ago, and now they're selling it for $8 million. Well, you've got a serious tax consequence on this property. How do I now provide value to them and show them how they can get tax shelters, whether it be in a 1031 exchange or alternative things to that, because it's not right for everybody. And so that's what actually led me to this provisors group is I had a client that was doing exactly that. And they had close to a $6 million gain on their property. And they previously did a 1031 exchange and they don't want to do it again. So I'm like, okay, let me find somebody that's going to provide another tax shelter that's similar to that, but has other benefits to it, and then bring them in. So again, the people that you surround yourself with, the ability to help as many people as you possibly can and build up your book of business so that you can provide as many solutions to whether it's buyers, sellers as you possibly can, and stay consistent. Stick with it. Don't quit. The only time you lose is when you stop. Yep. I know so many people that stop and start. Well, that's why you have a roller coaster business. Just stop quitting.
That is awesome. Bryan, if our listeners want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
My YouTube channel or Instagram, Bryan Knisley. Pretty simple to find.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, sir. I really appreciate having you on, and thanks for joining us and just sharing all those nuggets with our listeners.
I appreciate you guys very much. Thanks for having me on. It's exciting.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning into this week's episode of the Top Producing Zone podcast. We'll catch you again next week.
See you soon.